began his career in Shenzhen around 2007, 2008, when he founded a company called Seed Studio. A Seed Studio is an open hardware accelerator, and we're going to hear more about this today. But aside from being the CEO of Seed Studio, Eric is also a lifelong maker and biker. He's trained as an electric engineer with projects about electronics, embedded systems, robotics. And after graduation, he worked at Intel as a chipset product engineer on quality control, and then took various jobs, including international trading and sourcing. He established Seed Studios, already mentioned, in 2008, which really started out of like a two-people business and transformed into what turned into a very successful company in open hardware and open hardware services to help makers turn ideas into products. He also created Chaikou Hackerspace in Shenzhen and co-founded the hardware accelerator HAX and introduced the first mini maker fair to China. And with all the work done to accelerate small-scale hardware innovations, he has been selected as one of the Forbes China 30 young entrepreneurs under 30. And so we'll hear a lot from Eric and his journey today, and about his company that he started and that has helped transform Shenzhen in the imaginary of these news media articles that I put up earlier as a silicon hardware for innovation. Please join me in welcoming Eric.
Thank you. Hello? Is it on?
No. Yes.
Okay, it's working. Good morning. I'm Eric Pan, and it's my huge pleasure to be here. I was trying to escape from Shenzhen for a little while, and thanks for inviting. This gave me a perfect chance to do that. I always wanted to come here. It's not only like sharing, but it's more like learning. I feel like I'm just coming out of the arena, and I see a little scope of Shenzhen. I will try my best to share what's happening there, about innovations, about evolving hardware, about how the city forms and how it might evolve for the next. So I think James has a very good question about what is innovation. It truly has many perspectives from different persons. I see from Shenzhen, including ourselves, it's like a choice that we have to be different. We have to survive, and the city has been this for many, many years. And I changed the name from Silicon Valley to Hollywood because I will explain the difference a little bit later. This was Shenzhen, like 30 years ago. It was a fisher village. It was just out of nowhere, just near Hong Kong, and it was for the most rebellious people to go to, because it's the frontier for capitalism. And in 1980s was only the most adventurous people or people who don't have a job will go to Shenzhen to earn a living, and that's everything started. So it was literally like the Wild West for China, just after it opens the economic gate. But through the last 30 years, a lot of things has created. The people has nothing, trying to create everything from scratch. And a lot of companies, factories try to set up their manufacturing center in Shenzhen. A lot of companies set up their offshore manufacturers there as well. But to an individual like myself, like someone else, it's an opportunity to go to Shenzhen and to join international collaborations and learn how to manufacture things, how to engineer their stuff, and how to make money out of the endless global economy. So that was something happens. And there are so many miracles, at least to the whole China's populations. In Shenzhen, we can build a floor of buildings in one day. In Shenzhen, you will see a lot of little buzz about wealth, about properties, about possibilities. And there is a famous saying that time is money and efficiency is life. This is the first of ever in China we hear this kind of sentences. And that's happening in Shenzhen. So through many years, Shenzhen became the humble technology center of China. Not many people know Shenzhen before, but through a lot of the attractions, it's becoming more important, and it's becoming a place that can really go and innovate with China. So I chose to do that in 2008, where the economic recess was, where the Beijing Olympic happens. And I did a startup in Beijing, and I felt it's lack of support. I'm trying to, after trying many career or roles, I started to think I was a maker, now I can be a maker, helping makers. So I moved to Shenzhen, and I am totally amazed by all the possibilities and agility of the supply chain there. But you can see it's something like this way. This is very beginning. We're starting from 2, and we hired 2 more. And it's starting in a very, it's very early before all the incubators happened. There's no fund, there's no investors, so we just do a small business trying to survive, trying to do something we like to do. And we never expect to go as big as now, but we think we are trying to do something different. We have to do something different. And by that time, Huaqiang Bay, I think a lot of people here has been to Huaqiang Bay. This is a picture from the Economist. It's a general look of Huaqiang Bay, but it's different. If you look at the counters, they are empty. In 2005, maybe, it was totally jammed with all kinds of people trying to buy the gadgets, buy the components to make their own mobile phone and sell it. This whole market was very jammed, but now it's mostly empty. Because of the wave has passed, the economy is hungry for new opportunities. That's where we came in. That's where the makers came in. We are trying to ask someone to manufacture 100 pieces for us. We want to buy a few dozens of components to test out. It's not going to be feasible if it's 10 years ago, because everybody was too busy. Nobody has the room and patience for innovation. While everybody is making a lot of money, who cares about innovation? So that was happening when we first came to Shenzhen. So we try to manage to hack into the supply chain by convincing them that we have very interesting new projects that can maybe manufacture 1,000 pieces later. So the vendors, they have no choice now by that time, so they choose to help with us. And in 2009, the whole ecosystem starts to interface with makers. Like Bonnie Huang first came to Shenzhen as the most out-of-world open source guy, maker. And he brought a lot of people trying to explore Shenzhen, trying to share the city with these pioneers. In this group, including Sparfang, it was our big cousin. He was based in Boulder, Colorado, the biggest open hardware distributor. And we also have a lot of students from MIT, from NYU, the professor like Tom Igoi from NYU. They come to check out Shenzhen, trying to find the MS source for all kinds of hardware. That's where we made the global ecosystem and trying to join, to become the whole maker ecosystem. And we didn't think that much, but we were just trying to explore every possibilities, every chances that we can work for the maker community. And there's no business model, there's no strategy, it was just services around the needs. And of course, since we are working for makers, we are very much aware and are looking forward to encounter with more maker communities. It was not like a traditional business way. Sometimes it's more like a community that while we are doing something different, we are trying to innovating. This kind of people, they are very lonely. They needed confirmations from peer. So that's where makerspaces are very important. And we've been to the makerspace in California, in Noisebridge, in NYC Resistors, and we feel so jealous. And we wanted to create the makerspace in China sometime. Until in 2012, I think not many people have seen this picture. David, I met David in Xinzhejian the first makerspace in Shanghai. And I went there. It was in a very old eye, and we get off, and I see, well, this is cool, fancy guys, and I see this middle-aged man smoking outside, and that was David. So we first met, and he asked me to do a sharing about New Shenzhai. I didn't realize that what I'm doing has relationship with Shenzhai. But I did that sharing, and I had a lot of inputs, a lot of feedbacks, and I feel so much home. And so this gave me a very good encouragement that I created the makerspace in Shenzhen. This is Chaihuo. We created Chaihuo. It's like the name of firewood. It's a Chinese saying that everybody takes up firewood to put them together. The fire will be burning higher. So it's like because I believe that makerspace is a collaborative innovations. You put people with different background into the same jar and shake it. You don't know what's coming out of that. You see a lot of cross-boundary innovations by this kind of discussions, talking. It happens. You will see a lot of people in this picture, including children, including hobbyists, entrepreneurs, media, and maybe some investors. So that's the routine gathering for for the makers in Chaihuo, and I'm totally missing that kind of atmosphere. And because we are feeling like in a corner, nobody knows, but we are doing something interesting, and we have ambitions that we can change the world a little bit. And some of them have becoming very successful, like MakeBlog. They become a 1,000 million company. And we have people, they just won a CES award, but they started very much like grassroots. They don't know what to do, so they come to Chaihuo to share their insights and to find opportunities. And our exploration went on. So this was the first Maker Faire, and we were too jealous about the Maker Faire in California, so why don't we just do one in Shenzhen? There are Maker Fairs in Cairo, in India, and everywhere. Why there's no Maker Faire in China? So we did that. And we were just a hardware company, so this is totally new for us. And we don't know how many people are coming. We don't know if there's just a lonely makers meetup. But in the end, there are so many people coming. People are so hungry about technology and innovations. They are seeing what we are doing as a new possibility. So they can see it, they can get rid of, they can have a different option, choices, besides what they have been doing for their life. Or for the children, they can give them new perspectives to join their economies. So that's, I think, the major reason for the Maker Faire for the first time. And since 2012, people start to, not only because of Maker Faire, but for a lot of media, a lot of word by mouth, people start to understand and come to Shenzhen. And including Associate Ventures, they are a software incubator in Dalian. And I talked to Sirius, and he wants to do a hardware incubator in Shenzhen. So I say, why not? We have empty office. We just moved to a new building, and we have the totally empty hall. So we help him to do the accelerators. That's where we meet a lot of makers globally. And that's serious. That's really a lot of makers. They come to Shenzhen to do serious startups with investors, with a lot of consultancies. And it's just a small portion of what happened before 2013. The whole city is like Hollywood. People coming from all over the world. If you look at all the red dots, they are about manufacturers. They are the small workshops you can just go and rent for 2 hours, or you can ask them to make 5 pieces for you. And why it's more like Hollywood than Silicon Valley to me? Because it's not the origin of all the innovations yet. It's not, in Shenzhen we don't have a lot of academic forces. It was just business person, engineers. It's a place where you get products made, deployed, manufactured, and shipped. So it's very much straightforward and it's very agile. We can see a lot of, maybe a lot of people have heard of Huawei, Tencent, the big brands, but the real spirit of Shenzhen is the medium to small companies. Whenever you want to make a product, you go there with an idea, you can find the talents and resources to help you to build that. And after the project is shipped, you can disassemble the company and to work with more different people for different projects. So it's very much like the Hollywood way, who are formed like small studios and form according to some projects. They do it very quickly. They try different things until some of them get succeeded. And so many people come in. It's very difficult for foreigners to survive in Shenzhen. I'm so glad that Marianne is here, and you know how difficult it is, and you totally survived for the city. And the city is becoming more open, but I think it takes more time to become more real international. So what's behind all these phenomenons? What's behind all these histories? I'm trying to build the model to understand the city, to understand the technology innovations. So this is our perception to the world. We are thinking innovation is like the pyramid. A lot of people has ideas, they are dreamers, but until you get it, the first prototype to demo it, it's zero. So, but whenever you use the accessible technologies to build it, it's going from 0 to 0.1. You have you draw together the forces to move to one, the first engineering sample that can be manufactured, and go to 1,000, 10,000 pieces. It's going all the way up. It's difficult. It's more and more difficult, and fewer survives. And whenever you manufacture more than 10,000 pieces, it's much easier to bridge into the industrial resources. And we want to help the pyramid to be easier for everyone to go up. And this is how we look at in the hardware structures. If you take a metaphor between hardware versus some animals, it's the same. It has the body, it has the skin, it has the gut, it has a skeleton, it has a soul. The soul could be the software, the firmware that can be developed everywhere. But whenever you're talking about the gut, the electronic parts, they need to be assembled, manufactured. There's a lot of these. According to David, I think it's 90% of the manufacture of electronics happens in Shenzhen. So that's the fastest place to do that. And then it comes to skeleton, which are the enclosures to protect and form the body of the hardware. And a majority of that happens in Shenzhen as well. And you need a skin to do the surface, to do the looking, to do the packaging, shipping. And that's clustered in Shenzhen as well. We're trying to standardize the procedures, the processes to make a hardware product. But each of the processes contains a lot of know-how talents to really get going. It's not like a software team that you have already infrastructure. You need to navigate through all the elements. You are like a conductor in an orchestra. You need to coordinate so many stuff to make it right. And the good thing is it's becoming faster and faster to build a hardware from the prototype to the end products. It's taking a lot of different processes now. You still need to go from prototype to engineering sample to small batch to larger batch to shipping. But because of so many, small scale manufacturers are needed now, this whole infrastructure are changing to support that. And you can turn something into a market in several weeks on extreme conditions. Because in Shenzhen, there are so many Shenzhen companies who want to create differentiating products. And their biggest weapon, the biggest advantage is the speed and also about the cost. So they need to do it fast. Whenever for example, whenever there is new iPhone, they need to make the enclosures, the protective cases before anyone else. So they are racing across time. They have predictions. They have very agile supply chains to make it happen. And for now, this kind of supply chain, the kind of mindset, they are ready, or more than ready, to be used by global innovators. And through open source hardware, we are also trying to simplify things. So fundamentally, making a hardware has no difference than putting together a computer. You just choose the microcontroller, the sensor, the communication module, display, 3D printer enclosure. You already have a proof of concept project. Then you evolve it, iterate, to make it manufacturable, to compile it, that can be distributed to the end customers. So we are facing a totally new infrastructure. Previously, it was supply chain driven. I feel more interested in seeing that near Detroit. Here, supply chain is a key that you reduce the cost, you build up the products in volumes, and you try to mass market. You try to convince the consumers to buy your product. This has been happening and sustained for 200 years. But what's next? People don't like common things. If you look at people in this room, we don't have same clothes. You don't have same shoes. Your glasses are different. So we can brutally or proudly to forecast for the near future. At some point, at some percentage, the whole thing will be more like demand chain driven. You have diverse demands. They get collected through SNS, through social media to collect the interests, and the crowdfunding can collect the purchasing demands. So we can have more independent designs, independent product to survive. And they need some support, and these supports are getting more complete. Like now we have more agile supply chain, especially in Shenzhen. We have a lot more open source technology. It starts from like microcontrollers, but now you can build a full mobile phone with open source hardware. We have the maker community global-wise. We go to every major city. We go to small towns. There are maker spaces. Maker is more like a language for people to share the same mindset to communicate. And we have more addictive manufacturers. You don't need to do injection molding, wait for 2 months. You can just do 3D print enclosure outside of your tables for a few hours. And also we have more free tools to do the CAD5 designs, even collaboratively. So all these things, I think we are coming to form a new business pattern that demand chain can overtake some of the market of supply chain driven business. So I'm not sure it's right, but that's why we believe and we are trying. Feel free to give us more inputs. Yeah, and I would like to hear your feedbacks and guidances. And meanwhile, after 2013, there are a lot of buzzes happening around makers. And the extreme result is, in China, it's called the era of mass innovations. The Prime Minister came over to our makerspace and initiated a national movement of makers. So this was totally unexpected and out of our humble control. It goes into the national report. It goes into the national policies. What we see is everybody is talking about innovations. Everybody is hungry for innovations. And we keep doing make fairs, and it's becoming a giant make fair. We have 190,000 visitors for make fair in 2014. We are totally stressed out because it's too many people. And people has very strong interests. The government has very strong interests. So there are so many maker spaces around China. And I heard the latest number is 4,000 maker space. And obviously, a lot of the maker spaces are empty because the innovators are not ready yet. So we built the we build a church to worship innovations, but there's no enough clerks, or there are no enough believers yet. It's good and bad. The good thing is, whenever you are an innovator, you go to any place in China, you will find a place to start. The bad thing is that you still need to explore, and you still need to suffer a lot of in-related conversations. And since in Shenzhen also goes deeper, this is a book from Bonnie Huang. He wrote this book called Essential Guides to Electronics in Shenzhen. If you want to know more about the details, it's like work through to survive in Shenzhen. You can buy this book. I didn't write that, but feel free to check it out. But I think it's just a start. If we look at Shenzhen itself, it's a city full of supply chains, full of industries, and it has very clear theme. Like in Shenzhen, we are known, it's known for PCB, it's known for electronic products, but it also, to the east of Shenzhen, is clustered by jewelries. I think maybe you don't know that in Shenzhen, the jewelry industry supported the 90% of the whole nation's demands. So there are so many gemstones jewelries happening, but nobody is really tapping into that. And everybody's talking about wearables. How about we go into them, to talk with them, to hack into their supply chains, to build something that's shiny, bling bling, and working. So in China, we have so many manufacturers happening, but they are lack of innovations. They don't know what to do next. A lot of the manufacturer industries, they move into real estate business. I need to also to mention that in Shenzhen, the real estate price is top of the country, and in some buildings it exceeds New York, Manhattan. So it brings on us a lot of troubles. What's next? How do the innovators survive? Like when in 2008, we come to Shenzhen, we can live in the Chenzhongchuan, the village in the cities, with very affordable cost. Whenever you are too much stressed by all the expenses, you lack of the room to innovate. So we are also trying to explore more possibilities. Thank you. This is Shenzhen, and it has very beautiful scenes. It's not only factories, but I like to do some advertisement of this. We have built a place called X Factory. It's an upgraded version of Makerspace. What we are trying to build is an open factory among factories. And we were totally depressed and panicked because of the Makerspace. There were too many Makerspaces, and what do the makers really lead? What do the industries really lead? So we want to invite more complementary, like well-established makers to come over. So we will be gathering designers, artists, architects, and also IoT teams. So we want to build a place that it can be the router between the global innovators and the local industries. And we started the first innovation place with Ranker. They are one of the biggest real estate company. We want to interface technology innovators with architectures, designers. So it was two different groups before, but they needed each other. But there was no interface to really compile the different resources. So that's what we are trying to do next in Shenzhen. It's in alpha stage. We are inviting maker pros from GlobalWise to come to Shenzhen, but we're also trying to bring in industries. For example, they are architects, they are interior designers. They need technology to renovate what they have created. And it's good and bad that the real estate price in Shenzhen is too high, that they need a lot of innovation to happen to be prove the value of that the price. So we're also bringing factories. So it's very difficult for people to go to factories and convince them to help you to manufacture stuff. But we want to have an operation system. We want to have an interface, bringing these factories together. You will see all the machineries. They will be compatible for factories that help you to ramp up in the near future. And also we want to create a really demand for the makers there. So I have been going to makers places in last year, and I feel people are a bit panic. So everybody's maker, but what's next? Why are we making? Besides hobbies, besides self-learnings, what is more than a maker hobbyist? How could we be more interfacing with the industry? How can we, vibrate the traditional manufacturers? How can we give them new ideas? So I think that's a very critical problem. And another problem is we see a lot of projects, a lot of makers failed their Kickstarter campaigns. They cannot deliver, they cannot ship, because they want to build things from scratch. They want to rebuild the wheels. But while there are so many traditional manufacturers, they are so good at the supply chains, distribution channels, why don't we just bring these two together? Like David was, we were doing a DUIIT workshop. So we took the Shanghai watches apart. We can reuse it for a lot more purposes, but we need an interface to bring all this stuff together. So this is a little experiment, and it's in alpha stage. We will be really open in June, and hope to create more platforms in Shenzhen for more innovations to really happen and to change things around. Thank you. So we have some time for questions.
Time for questions. Yes.
So I have a question about a point you made earlier, which is that for people who are looking for innovation, it's better to come to the small companies rather than the larger ones, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And my question is, how does that work with both labor, the structure of labor, as well as individual aspiration? Because in a lot of other places in India, for instance, you see that the innovators, the younger people, once they get to a certain point, they want to move to the larger firms. And it appears that you're suggesting the opposite is true here. Why does that work?
So I think Shenzhen itself is like amplifier. You can create the innovations everywhere around the world, especially to address local vertical problems. But whenever you need to duplicate, you need to propagate this idea, you should go to Shenzhen where it can be amplifying the result. And the way to do it, if you are a big company, if you have proven market with enough orders, you can go to big contract manufacturer like Foxconn. But if you are still starting from the verge, starting from the differentiating markets, you should go to this more agile suppliers. We can work with you in a more agile patterns. You can do them. You can work with them in a much smaller NRE, which is non-recurring engineering cost. Because I still take the metaphor like the Hollywood. There are so many small studios, workshops there. It's much easier to convince them to work with you rather than you can have a very large order going to the contract manufacturers. That's the real spirit and power of Shenzhen. I'm not sure if I answered your questions well. Okay. Maria?
This is kind of following on that question, the diversity of Shenzhen's ecosystem. Given housing costs, given real estate prices, right? Even commercial space is now opening at 50,000, housing is 100,000 per square meter. How do you maintain small spaces, because I would say that what I heard in the question is you're actually more stable as a bigger company because you can afford rent. But the small spaces are not really stable because of rent prices, and the villages are going. So how does, if we take what you've said as a model, how do we convince the Shenzhen government and real estate people that their interest is actually in supporting a certain kind of ecology rather than in pursuing specific projects?
So we have been proposing a lot with the government because of the real estate price has hindered innovations, and they are taking means to like have some apartment for the talents. You can apply for it if you are graduates. They will be building a lot more. It's in a communist way to have planned economy for the innovators. They are evaluated too. Andrew Fang, yes, but it's not efficient enough. It's too slow. And on the other hand, let me share what they are trying, because none of them is really working in large scopes. The second thing is they have some funds for the innovators. Whenever they go there, they can apply according to their projects, so they can get from 50,000 to 100,000 RMB of initial funds, and all kinds of reimbursement, investors. So I think these things are help filtering, at least for these potential projects, they can get some support. But it's not for that kind of grassroots way of natural growth. It's not there yet. I think the answer is more to find the interface for the individual teams, for startups to pipe to connect their innovations more straightforward to the economies, so they can make money to sustain their innovations.
An example.
Yeah.
In Dalang, I have friends who have an LED factory. They make lights and little things. And then the brother-in-law has his shop in Huaqiangbei, right? And
Yep.
so you make your orders through Huaqiangbei, and then they come in through Dalang. Now, Dalang is still really cheap. It still has a lot of urban villages. It still has factories. It still has factory workers. It has horrible schooling situation. There is no Dalang can, like 2005, Huaqiangbei can actually sustain a cheap hardware production ecology. It cannot, however, sustain the lives and the kind of lifestyles of the people the government is giving the money to. And so I guess that's for me the important kind of spatial tension that we're talking about, because it's not simply that makers make things, they need factories full of workers to produce them. And that kind of base is what's actually being demolished.
I'm not the government.
No, but I mean, there has to be a way of talking of getting...
But I can see it from startup's point. If like I'm doing a startup again, maybe not, but if I'm doing it again today, I think the real matter is how do we make money instead of saving money. So the expense is critical, but it's not the most important thing. I think the most important thing is where I can find the business to survive. So yes, there will be a lot of changes that the conditions used to be very helpful has been removed, but we never believe the government will foster the innovation. It's the people, it's the innovator itself survives. So there will always be a way. But I think the more important is how can we help the innovators find the exit, find the how to say the point where they can survive their business. And we see a lot of innovators, they just move out of Shenzhen. They go to Changsha, they go to Chengdu, they go to other places, which means Shenzhen is becoming more like arena. You have to be ready to go there. But there you can have the triumph. You can be the superstar. But you cannot go there when you are not prepared. You should be training somewhere else. I think what's happening for Shenzhen now. But for whoever is well trained, global-wise, Shenzhen is still the place to really get things going. Yeah, I think I don't have a very correct answer to your questions, and it's bothering me as well. But
I don't have answers. I want allies.
Okay, there's another question here.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on the relationship between Shanghai culture and this maker movement. Because in your talk, I heard you mention that the new Shanghai, and also you're talking about the competition between the maker and those Shanghai companies. So yeah, just.
I think there is no obvious competition between Shanghai companies. If we come back to the root of Shanghai, well, as Sylvia and David are the true experts, but I try to explain from my will. Shanghai, if you look at the root of the name, it's like Robin Hood. It's like the rebellious team who are trying to do the hardware by themselves. They are trying to, a little bit of piracy, they're trying to get from established business, and they're trying to imitate and take the shares from the customers. And if we look at the nature of Shanghai, I think it's no difference versus makers, versus startups. There's no obvious difference. So for now, we are trying, the makers or startups that come to Shenzhen, it's more like they become Shanghai team themselves, or they try to work with the Shanghai team themselves because they are more agile, they are more smaller to be collaborating. And Shanghai, I think we have a lot of negative image before, is they are illegal copies, they are doing harmful things, but they are the true nature of Shenzhen. It has been evolved for decades, from very beginning to whenever there is popular stuff like BP, the pagers, they create pagers. There is Shenzhen mobile phone, they create mobile phones. They create routers, switches. It's just the form. It's more agile, and it's working with each other to form kind of new productive relations. And Maker, I think it's the same. Or even we can say that in a reverse way. The innovators are international version of Shanghai.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.